I have a list of things that I would have liked to have known before I purchased the ProMaster, but even given this list, I would still purchase the ProMaster. Um, One of the main reasons that I purchased the ProMaster is the price. It's quite a bit less than the Ford Transit and the Mercedes Sprinter. Also, it being the wider body and the more straight walls, it was a little better for building. So those are a couple of the reasons why I purchased the ProMaster. But I think most people usually go with the ProMaster based on the price. This is a 2024. I bought it in 2025, brand new. It's the 136 wheelbase, 3500, and it was brand new even though it was 2024, and I purchased it in 2025, and I paid about $43,000 for it. So that's a pretty good price, or at least it was last year looking around. I haven't looked around since then, but compared to getting into one of the Ford Transits or one of the Mercedes Sprinters, that was a pretty good price. So that was the main factor for me in choosing the ProMaster. I'm pretty happy with it, but like I said, there are a couple of things that you might want to know going into purchasing the ProMaster. So I have a list here. When I purchased it, literally within a couple of days, the front collision system has this little indicator, and apparently I've learned since then that it's very, very common and it's almost unrepairable, it seems. So it has the front collision system, being that it'll apply the brakes before it lets you run into somebody. So that little thing went off maybe a couple days after I had bought it. Took it back in. They said that there was something wrong with the camera, was overheating, that senses, I guess, the car's in front of you. Never did get it fixed. I actually haven't taken it in again for that because we've been using it for traveling and things like that, and I don't want to be without it. So I've just kind of accepted that I will go ahead and watch for traffic in front of me and put the brakes on myself. But I've also found that that's very, very common, and that it's common that if you do take it in, they may fix it and then it just comes back. What I have noticed with mine is sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. I'd say maybe 75% of the time it's not working. So the little indicator is there that it's not working. And then maybe 25% of the time I start it up and I'm driving and I just happen to look down and hey, it's working. But I also have had it apply the brakes when it says that it's not working. So something you might want to know about the ProMaster. It seems to be pretty common if you go on the forums. So just something to know. The other thing that is something to know for me is the lock system in the ProMaster. It's another thing that I've seen on the forums that can be a little bit strange. So I'll give you a scenario that happened to me. So I have the keyless entry, so I just have to have the fob, and I don't put it in the ignition to start. I just push the button. I was out walking my dogs, came back to the ProMaster, unlocked it. Without thinking, the dogs got in, and I set their little walking pack in the van. I didn't relock the doors. I had unlocked them to put them in, set it down, shut the door, walked around to the driver's door, and the ProMaster had locked all the doors. So I was locked out and they were locked in. I had to get a locksmith, because the other thing about the ProMaster is I've noticed this in a lot of places too. Even though they tell you you're going to get 2 keys, I got 1 key. They promised me a second key and never came through on the second key. That second key is about $500 or $600. So that's kind of a problem. So anyways, I only had the 1 key because this was like, I think in the first month or 2 of having it, and had to call a locksmith. I think it was $300 and some for him to come unlock it. Since then, I now have a key. I went to the dealership and I bought just the key that, I guess it's like called the skeleton key, just to unlock the driver's door in case that happens. So now I do have a key. I still haven't gotten a second key that will start it and run the whole system. The other thing that I've had an issue with is fueling, and I've seen this on the forums too. There's something with the fuel neck, the sensor or something. It's not, there's a problem with it. Right away when I started fueling it, I thought it was me not pushing the nozzle in enough, But again, I went on some of the forums and I noticed that some people had, I think there's like a sensor in there or something that had been changed. So what I noticed is if you put the gas nozzle in, you have to tilt it up. Otherwise, if you just put it in, especially if it has one of those air gap things to stop the vapors from coming back, it'll just constantly click off and it's almost impossible to get gas into it. So what I do is I put it in and then I give it a tilt. The only problem with that is I've had several times where it will then overfill, because something about having it in that position, then the sensor that turns off the pump handle doesn't work correctly and then it overfills. So what I end up doing is I turn on the dash and I literally watch as I put gas in it until I get to around 400 estimated miles, and that's about a full tank, and I watch the little thing go up. So that's kind of annoying and kind of a silly problem. The other problem that I've had problems with is the Bluetooth connectivity. So what it does is I'll have my phone hooked up, listening to music, podcasts, whatever, and it just disconnects. Sometimes I just have to re-hit the media button and it'll start back in. Sometimes I have to go in and reselect my phone and hit the media button. I don't know what that's about. I almost wonder, I don't know if this is possible, maybe somebody else with a Ram product is driving around me and they're hitting their button and it's doing something to mine. I don't know. I don't know if that's how that works, but that's another annoying problem that I have noticed. Let's see. The other thing, and this bothers my husband actually more than it bothers me, is the backup camera at night. He's really irritated, and I noticed it on one of the forums, somebody talking about how poor the backup camera is in the dark. We actually tried to put brighter reverse lights in there, and immediately the computer system started freaking out because it wasn't the right part number or whatever, so it was messing up the computer system. It was bringing up the check your lights message. So apparently that's something I've seen other people not like also. It's just kind of not a very good backup camera. So that's kind of annoying. Then the other thing that I did not know until I bought it, which is something good to know. I don't know if this applies to all vans because obviously I just bought the ProMaster, but insuring it. I only found 2 companies that I could insure it through, and it is just insured as the vehicle. My build isn't insured, and it's actually kind of expensive. So I ended up going with USAA. So they insured it, and like I said, it's a little bit expensive, and I really didn't have much to choose from. So that's kind of something to know before you purchase it. Now, the big thing that I will say that I am surprised by is getting it serviced and any mechanical care. I just figured, Amazon drives them, the post office drives them, UPS drives them, painters drive. There's so many of them out on the road. The idea that getting service done on them was going to be difficult, it just wasn't something that occurred to me at all until I started the build and then was looking for where it was going to get its oil changed. So where I'm located, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, several of the dealerships will not work on them at all, like even do an oil change. If you have done anything to the roof or anything to the exterior bottom, they ask you when you call to make the oil change appointment, have you made any modifications to the roof? Have you made any modifications to the underbody? And if your answer is yes, they won't even change your oil. So that's something that really surprised me, because you're thinking you buy a new vehicle and you have a problem, well, you're just going to run it up to your local dealership and it's going to get taken care of. That is not the case with the ProMaster if you are doing any modifications. I understand the idea behind that, but it's kind of annoying. Like for me, I was going to put a skylight, I was going to put a roof rack. I had some ideas for stuff that I was going to do to the roof. Now I won't do that until I'm out of factory warranty. Once I'm out of factory warranty and you're not going to be looking specifically for a Ram dealer, then you can have a little more freedom in doing that stuff. But if you buy it brand new, it's something to check into right away. There is a dealership that will take it if you've done work on it. It's about an hour and a half away from me. But I don't want to, there's a problem. I don't want to be driving an hour and a half to the dealership to get something done. I don't want to drive an hour and a half to get an oil change. It's really, it's an interesting issue that I didn't know I was going to face at all. And not only that, I mean, I've got 18,000 some miles, so I'm getting near the end of the factory warranty. So I kind of I was like, well, maybe I'll start having its oil changed at a shop and start establishing a relationship with a shop, in case it has further problems down the road, because I want to keep it long term. And I called a couple of shops, and one of them said that they would change the oil. They won't do anything else. They won't even do any kind of inspection on it, because apparently a lot of the shops, they just don't have the equipment. So like I said, that's something that surprised me a lot and kind of affects the ownership of this kind of vehicle a lot, and is something that I kind of wish I had known. Or I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't have not bought it, but it would just be one of those things that would be nice to know ahead of time, that it's going to be a battle that you're going to be facing. So and if I hadn't found that out before I started doing stuff to the roof, then I would really be bummed out. But luckily I did find that out before I started doing stuff to the roof, so that's on hold for now. But eventually it will have a skylight and a roof rack and probably a rooftop deck, or I'm thinking I might put a rooftop tent up there eventually. All of that said, those are like my complaints and things that I think that you should know before you purchase a ProMaster. All of that said, I will say that I have really enjoyed this. Now, I don't live full-time in this van. This is my daily driver though, so that's, I guess, a little bit different. I have another vehicle, but I choose almost every day to drive this. As far as the things that I really like, I love the way that you sit up really high in this and you can see everything. I think comfort-wise, it's actually pretty comfy. All of the system, is nice. When it works right, the push button start, the Bluetooth radio, the nice big screen. I have the nice big 7-inch screen. It has a lot of things in it that I do like when they are working correctly. So all of the complaints said, I would definitely purchase it again. And I think for the price point, it's pretty good. You can argue that you shouldn't pay $43,000 and then have anything that doesn't work right. And I understand that argument too. But I also, before this ProMaster, I had a 2020 F-150 that I had to have the whole engine replaced at 50,000 miles. So I guess, I don't know, my expectations are not super, super high on brand new vehicles, which is kind of sad, but that's just the way things are, unfortunately. But I do use it as a daily driver. As I said, I love using it as a daily driver. Some of the things that I love about that is it's just really nice to every single day have a little home behind you. Whether it's taking the dogs for a walk and they get all muddy, when we get back to the van, I just pop them in the sink and rinse off their little paws, and then they don't get mud everywhere. Or I'm at the grocery store and I have a couple errands, but I've bought refrigerated products. I just put them in the refrigerator and I can go do errands all day long. It doesn't matter when I get home. Things like that. Or you're someplace and you have to wait for a little while for whatever reason. I'll just jump up on the bed, get comfy, and scroll TikTok or YouTube or whatever. So there's a lot of things that are actually really nice about having it for a daily driver. I personally think that it's super easy to drive, super easy to park. The gas mileage is really good, really reasonable. Depending upon where I'm traveling, I get anywhere between 15 and 20 miles per gallon. It seems to kind of go down as we go up in elevation. And then, of course, if I'm in a lot of stop and go traffic, it's not as good. But yeah. So anyways, that is my little 1 year review of my ProMaster. I have changed a couple things in the build, and maybe I'll do an updated video on that. But I just thought it would be nice to make a video of all of the things that I've encountered in the last year, and just things that I really think that it would be nice to know before you purchased. Like the serviceability, even though I would still purchase it again, I would just like to know going into it how difficult it was going to be to get serviced, because I just don't think people think about that. You just at least I didn't. Maybe other people do. But anyways, that's my 1 year review.